The golden child, the mystic, the rebel, the baby, and the black sheep. This is the Sully kids, explained. Born to be a leader, raised as the perfect warrior, and gone before he ever got to grow up. But if you think Neteyam's story ended on the deck of the Seadragon, think again. Neteyam's early years, the making of a golden child. Neteyam Sully Chekitan, born around 2155, is the first child of Jake and Neytiri. He entered the world as the living symbol of the Omatikaya's future. The firstborn of Toruk Makto and the son of a future Tsahik, he is, from the moment he opens his eyes, tied to a leadership line that stretches back through Na'vi history. Neteyam becomes the benchmark against which all the other Sully kids are measured. Where Loak is allowed to stumble and Tuk is allowed to play, Neteyam must excel, mature faster, and always maintain discipline. Neteyam was raised in the shadow of the 2154 war, spending his first years among the remains of Home Tree before the Omatikaya relocated to the floating Hallelujah Mountains, glimpsed during Jake's narration at the start of The Way of Water. In the family montage that opens The Way of Water, we see baby Neteyam being presented to the entire clan, connecting to Eywa for the first time under the Tree of Souls, playing with his siblings and being taught to shoot a bow by Jake. Tie-in material in Avatar The High Ground makes his formative training and conditioning clearer. When Jake takes one of the boys on recon or training missions, it's always Neteyam, not Loak, because Neteyam is the one Jake describes as reliable. These moments are the foundation of the role he'll spend his whole life fulfilling. Neteyam is praised when he follows orders, trusted with tasks beyond his years, and held up as the model that the other Sully children are expected to match. This is the origin of the perfect son position assigned to him, and it's reinforced every time he's treated like a young warrior instead of a child. Sounds a little like a Pandoran royal family to me. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. The Avatar The High Ground comics show Neteyam is the default babysitter, expected to keep the younger siblings safe, and, importantly, the one constantly told to keep Loak in line. His relationship with Loak in these stories is a tightrope walk between competitiveness and protectiveness. They spar, they tease, but the burden is always on Neteyam to prevent Loak's impulsiveness from spiraling into danger. These are the sibling roles that The Way of Water amplifies into a full character triangle. Neteyam as duty and discipline, Loak as rebellion and risk, and Kiri, seen in both the comics and the films, as the wild card who moves according to her own rhythm. If you're enjoying this breakdown of Neteyam's early years, don't forget to hit like. The burden of being the perfect son. The wider canon reinforces what we see in the films. Neteyam carries the burden of being the perfect son. Pandorapedia and tie-in guides describe him as noble, confident, and widely favored by the clan. The child who resembles Neytiri holds himself to an incredibly high standard and constantly tries to prove his worth to Jake. That reputation shapes how everyone treats him. But what's most telling is the kind of praise he receives. Neteyam isn't celebrated for being curious or expressive. He's celebrated for discipline, for following orders, staying controlled, and doing exactly what's expected. His value, as the adults define it, is tied directly to obedience and responsibility. Freedom isn't part of the deal. Interviews with Jamie Flatters reveal another layer to this pressure. He notes that Neteyam wants to be seen as a leader and warrior like Jake because he's internalized that expectation. He wants to live up to Toruk Makto's image and prove he deserves the future everyone assumes he'll inherit. At the same time, he's shaped by Neytiri's side of the family, by her spirituality and her connection to Eywa. He's pulled between two worldviews. This all raises the question the story never lets him answer. Did Neteyam ever actually get the chance to just be a kid? The Way of Water. Warrior. Brother. Protector. When The Way of Water moves out of its opening montage and into the present-day conflict, Neteyam is already playing the role of a young warrior, joining a guerrilla attack on an RDA maglev train. But the defining pattern of his story soon reappears. Loak, eager to prove himself, ignores Jake's orders to keep watch and dives into danger. Neteyam follows, not to join in, but to contain Loak, to stop things from getting worse. The two are then caught in an explosion, with Neteyam taking the heavier hit. Jake's reaction seals the dynamic. He scolds Loak, yes, but he turns to Neteyam with sharper frustration and reminds him that it's his job to keep his brother in line. The message is obvious. Bravery is assumed, obedience is required, and Loak's mistakes ultimately fall on Neteyam's shoulders. It's a pattern the film returns to later, tragically. Old battlefield encounter and forced exile. The turning point for the Sully family comes in the old battlefield, a forest scarred with gunship wreckage, AMP shells, and rusted metal from the First War. Loak, in his usual mix of curiosity and defiance, leads Kiri, and Spider on an expedition. When they are captured by Quaritch and his recon squad, Neteyam is dragged into the fallout. Jake and Neytiri launch a rescue bid, and in the ensuing firefight, a recon sets his sights on Neytiri. Neteyam intervenes with a well-timed arrow, saving his mother's life. But having revealed his position, he fumbles nervously with his next arrow, leaving him vulnerable to recon fire. Only a desperate lunge from Jake saves him from a hail of bullets. It's a timely reminder that the Golden Boy is still just a kid. All the Sully kids are rescued, but the encounter makes Jake realize that Quaritch will keep hunting him through his children, and they are no longer safe. Overnight, Neteyam shifts from heir of a forest clan to a refugee trying to adjust to a new home and a new way of life. And if you're enjoying this video, why not try adjusting to life as a subscriber to this channel? Learning the way of water. Once the Sullys arrive in Awa'atlu, Neteyam adapts to the Metkayina way of life with the same focus he applies to everything else. During reef training, he picks up new techniques: ilu riding, breath control, diving, taking instruction from Tsireya without the friction Loak shows. Yet he's still pulled into the familiar role of mediator. When Anung mocks Kiri and Loak as freaks, Neteyam tries to defuse the situation before backing his brother once fists fly. Later, after learning Anung abandoned Loak beyond the reef, he drags him to Tonawari to confess, while still urging Loak not to make things harder for the family. Loak isn't just breaking rules anymore, he's brushing ever closer to death, bringing Neteyam one step closer to the line with him. Protecting his brother stops being a responsibility. It becomes a countdown. The Tulkun hunt and Seadragon battle. The Tulkun hunt sees Neteyam make the most important choice of his story. When the Metkayina learn a Tulkun has been killed, Loak decides to sneak out and warn Payakan, defying Jake's explicit orders to stay out of it. Neteyam knows exactly what it means to defy their father. He argues with Loak and tries to stop him, but even after this is thrown back in his face as the perfect son, he still ends up following. For once, he isn't just cleaning up after Loak's recklessness, he's choosing his brother's cause over Jake's authority, which marks a crucial shift. Their choice pulls them straight into Quaritch's trap. Payakan has already been tagged by the whalers, and Loak, Tsireya, and Tuk are captured and used as bait. In the running fight around the whaling ship in the sea stacks, Neteyam helps save Payakan by ripping off the tracker and drawing fire away on an ilu, fighting with the same hit-and-run technique Jake drilled into him from childhood. Everything then escalates aboard the Seadragon. Neteyam boards the ship to rescue his captured siblings and frees Loak, Tsireya, and Tuk. He's ready to pull them out, but Loak wants to go back for Spider, who is still in the RDA's captivity. Again, Neteyam chooses to follow Loak. The infiltration that follows is the clearest demonstration of his abilities in the film. He moves through the ship with controlled aggression, coordinating with Loak in tight spaces, freeing Spider. Under fire, he stays focused and decisive, leading the others to the moon pool and making sure Loak and Spider hit the water first before diving after them. For a brief time, Neteyam isn't just a child under pressure, but a fully realized warrior, doing exactly what he was raised to do. Tragically, it costs him everything: Neteyam's death. Neteyam is hit as he jumps into the water. The wound is fatal. After a ride on an ilu to safety from Quaritch, his final moments are spent surrounded by his family, Jake and Neytiri holding him as the light fades from his eyes, the perfect son fulfilling the role he's been trained for since childhood. Protect your siblings, no matter the cost. The Metkayina funeral that closes out Way of Water is stark and beautiful. His body is returned to the sea as all gather in mourning. Neytiri is devastated, Jake is hollowed out, and the younger siblings, especially Loak, are shattered. In a story defined by responsibility, expectation, and sacrifice, Neteyam's death is the ultimate tragic payoff. If Neteyam's story hits you as hard as it does us, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss our deep dives on the rest of the Sully family. Death and legacy. Neteyam's shadow over fire and ash. The emotional fallout of Neteyam's death will be the foundation of Avatar, Fire and Ash. Jake and Neytiri will still be shattered, their relationship strained by grief. For Loak, the impact is likely going to make him grow up very quickly. Now the oldest surviving biological child, he carries a weight he never trained for. The survivor's guilt is immediate and crushing. It was his decision to sneak out, and then his insistence on rescuing Spider that drew Neteyam into the line of fire. Fire and Ash is set to focus heavily on Loak's trauma, his newfound responsibilities, and the impossible task of living with the knowledge that his brother died saving him. Neteyam may be gone, but Loak's arc is now shaped entirely by the shadow he left behind. To soften the blow of his absence, some good news. Neteyam will be getting some screen time. In Fire and Ash, the first trailer opened with a flashback of the brothers riding their Ikrons together. There is also the strong possibility that Loak or Neytiri might commune with Neteyam at the Tree of Souls. These moments could allow the characters to speak to him, ask for guidance, or confront the grief they've been unable to voice aloud. Even in death, Neteyam will be the quiet, emotional center of Fire and Ash, with the entire story shaped by the consequences of his loss. Thematically, this fits perfectly. In life, Neteyam stood at the intersection of Jake's marine discipline and Neytiri's Na'vi spirituality, the child who carried both worlds without ever complaining. In death, he has the potential to become something even more important. The spiritual anchor that shapes Loak's identity, steadies Neytiri's rage, and reminds the entire Sully family what they are fighting for. Will Neteyam stay frozen as the perfect son in his family's memory, or will Fire and Ash show us his flaws and doubts through flashbacks and visions, turning him into something even more human? What's your favorite Neteyam moment? Do you want to see more of him in Fire and Ash? And how do you think Neteyam's legacy is going to shape the choices Loak makes going forward? Now let's get into Kiri and everything you need to know before Fire and Ash. Origin and early life. Kiri was born in 2155, just 1 year after the First War. Her full name, Kiri Sully Ite, carries the weight of her origins. Kiri as her given name, Sully from her adoptive father Jake's Na'vi name, Jake Sully, and Kiresi Ite meaning daughter of Grace, the Na'vi translation of Grace Augustine. As Jake explains, she was born of Grace's still living but comatose avatar body after Grace died in the 2154 conflict. No one knows who the father is. Her existence is treated as a mystery, described by some as a virgin birth, and by others as Awa's will. Jake and Neytiri adopted her into the Sully family immediately. Kiri is about the same age as Neteyam. In The Way of Water, we even see flashes of their early days, when both infants were brought by Jake and Neytiri to the Tree of Souls for their first connection to Awa, surrounded by the entire Omatikaya clan. She has both human and Na'vi traits, 5 fingers, soft eyebrows, and no elongated canines, marking her as a Na'vi-human hybrid like the rest of the Sully kids. She grew up among the Omatikaya, first in the remnants of Home Tree between 2155 to 2168, and later in the Floating Mountains. She lived shoulder to shoulder with Neteyam, Loak, and Tuk. Moat, her adoptive grandmother, guided her through Na'vi traditions, rituals, and healing arts, something we see in Avatar: The High Ground. She spent much of her childhood alongside Spider, the human boy born just before the fall of the Home Tree. Together, they explored forests, observed animals, and learned survival skills. In High Ground, we even see them wandering Hell's Gate and venturing into dangerous old battlefields. To Kiri, Spider isn't just a friend, he's her brother. She's always the one fighting for his place in the family, even when Neytiri refuses. The comics show her inviting him into Sully celebrations, much to Neytiri's frustration. Is a Neytiri versus Kiri clash on the cards in Fire and Ash? Given Spider and Kiri's close relationship, it seems possible to us. Tell us what you think in the comments. When growing up, life in the Omatikaya clan included lessons, games, swimming, training and hunting, and navigating the forest. Kiri showed a consistent interest in the natural world and in the plants and creatures around her, often spending extended periods observing them closely, a practice we can see carried through into The Way of Water. This curiosity closely reflected Grace's passion for Pandora's flora, unique powers, and spiritual connection. As she grew up, Kiri's abilities and her affinity with Pandoran nature became more visible. Kiri tamed a mountain banshee, Ikron, named Tanhi when she was a child. Unlike other Omatikaya, she does not go through the standard Iknamaya trial with a banshee like we see Jake experience in Avatar. If you remember, that was a life-or-death moment for Jake. Instead, she simply approaches an Ikron and asks it to be her friend, and it accepts her. She also starts to ride earlier than typical Omatikaya teens, and her bond with the animal is presented as empathetic and effortless rather than relying on physicality. In The Way of Water, her close bond with Awa becomes apparent very early on. After glimpsing her as a child in the opening montage with Jake's narration, teenage Kiri's first words sound strangely familiar and comforting. In case you didn't know, Kiri is voiced by Sigourney Weaver, who played Grace in the first movie. In essence, she is voiced by her mother. We hear Kiri debating with Moat, her grandmother, about the best remedy for war wounds. Kiri tells her, "I would use Yalna bark, because it is better, it stings less." Kiri makes sure to stay close to her mother, visiting her avatar body and looking lovingly upon her. She watches Grace's old video logs explaining the Pandoran ecology, again with reverence and love in her eyes. We hear her siblings make gentle jokes about who her father is, and we will come back to that later. Remember, if you're enjoying this video, make sure to give it a like. In one of the franchise's most beautiful sequences, we see Kiri in the Pandoran jungle at one with and in awe of the plant life and the animal life. Until Karina gather, as they did with Jake in the first movie, highlighting her significance to Eywa. As she sleeps on the jungle floor, she falls into a deep trance, and Spider struggles to wake her. She was communing with Eywa. Exiled to the Metkayina and the Second War. The Sully family then fled east to Awa'atlu, the ocean home of the Metkayina clan, leaving the forest behind. From the moment they arrive, Kiri adapts to the ocean faster than any of her siblings. She swims and dives effortlessly, explores reefs, kelp forests, and coral groves, moving with grace and wonder among the ocean creatures. Her first encounters with the local animal life cement her place within the reef immediately, while the others, Jake, Neytiri, Loak, all struggle to bond with the sea creatures and perform Sahelu. Kiri's Ilu approaches her, and immediately they are a team. We then see her ability to command sea life, while Rona watches on closely. The new trailer hints that she's only just beginning to understand the full extent of these gifts, and that they're set to shape the outcome of the coming conflict. But even surrounded by all the reef's beauty, Kiri feels out of place. The Metkayina children call her a freak. She tells Neytiri that she just wants to be normal, and she tells Jake that she knows she probably sounds crazy. They both, as good parents would, reassure her that she is perfect the way she is. Kiri's first encounter with the Metkayina spirit tree marks a dramatic turning point. She approaches the glowing tendrils carefully and performs Tsahelu. She then experiences a vivid vision of grace where they embrace. She asks why she is different and what the Great Mother wants from her. And when she asks who her father is, the vision ends with a life-threatening seizure. Scans show unusual neural activity triggered by contact with the tree, but Norm's human science fails to save her. Rowanal's Eywa forward healing technique, on the other hand, brings her back to life. Many have theorized that her system was overloaded because she is an avatar of Eywa, and connecting to the tree was like plugging a power source into itself. What do you think about this theory? What if this wasn't a seizure? What if it was a download? We'll be getting deeper into Kiri and Eywa's connection shortly, so stick around. Kiri's abilities prove critical in life-or-death moments during the skirmish at the Three Brothers. She manipulates sea plants to snare enemy submersibles. One mini-sub pursuing Loak and Took is destroyed through her intervention, likely saving Loak's life. And as the Seadragon mothership sank, she sent glowing fish into the wreck to illuminate escape routes, bringing Neytiri and Took safely from flooded compartments. These actions show her near-symbiotic relationship with the ocean and its creatures, turning the tide in favor of her family. Kiri's father. There is plenty of speculation around who Kiri's father is and what the truth around her birth is. While we do not yet have any clear idea, it seems likely that Fire and Ash will shed more light on this. The latest trailer hinted as much, with Moat saying, "Tell her it is time." Although the children joke in the Way of Water that Norm might be the father, this seems very unlikely when you look closely at what we've seen. Firstly, it is fair to say that Grace's character in Avatar was beyond human childbearing age. Secondly, deleted scenes from the first Avatar film reveal that Norm was already taken. He and Trudy Chacon were romantically entwined for a short time before her death, and Norm does not seem the type to play the field like that. Also, Norm being the father is far less exciting than some of the mind-boggling alternatives. Could she be a clone of Grace herself? This would line up with the Kiresi Ite, daughter of Grace, naming convention. However, this seems unlikely to us, as it doesn't explain her powers. So if she isn't a clone and she isn't Norm's, could we be looking at a literal god walking among the Na'vi? Is she Pandora's messiah, Eywa incarnate? She certainly ticks many of the boxes. Virgin birth with no known father, the ability to command nature, and perhaps even undergoing death and resurrection at the hands of the spirit tree. Kiri's role in the future. Looking ahead, Kiri's role is poised to expand significantly. The Fire and Ash trailers have already shown us that Kiri will play a crucial role in the new film, as she features prominently in all of them. We know that she will spend time with the Tlalim clan aboard their sky caravans, that she will get into trouble with Loak in the jungle again, and most crucially, that she will be taken prisoner by the film's new antagonist, Varang, the Manquan clan leader. These so-called Ash people are believed to have rejected Eywa, and the trailer suggests they've formed an alliance with Quaritch and the RDA. That puts Kiri, a Na'vi hybrid born of a human's avatar, possibly the daughter of Eywa herself, at the heart of the struggle, between humans and the Na'vi, between spirituality and destruction, between the way of Eywa and the way of fire and ash. Kiri's life is defined by mystery, power, and destiny. As new threats arise from both darker Na'vi factions and the returning RDA, Kiri's abilities will be crucial for the survival of her people and the balance of the planet itself. If you enjoyed exploring Kiri's character in depth, don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into your favorite characters and their stories. Next up, born and raised in the shadow of heroes and bonded with a giant Tulkun. If you think you know the Sully kids, wait until Loak steps up in Fire and Ash. So, what will happen when a rebellious, grieving teenager becomes a leader and a warrior? Loak's early years. Loak Sully was born in 2156 on Pandora. He is the second son of Jake and Neytiri, the brother of Neteyam and Neytiri, and the adoptive brother of Kiri. Loak's appearance sets him apart from all except his father and siblings. He has 5 fingers and 5 toes, unlike most Na'vi, as well as eyebrows and other inherited human-like features. These differences contributed to a sense of otherness from a young age. Among his own people, he is sometimes teased as half-breed or forest boy. Loak's early years were shaped by living in the shadow of his older brother, Neteyam. Neteyam was admired for his discipline and skill, as seen in Avatar, The High Ground. By contrast, Loak was impulsive, curious, and reckless, always looking for ways to prove himself. In other words, a textbook younger brother, taking risks, climbing heights, exploring forbidden areas, and challenging authority, all of which earned him scoldings from Neytiri and warnings from Jake. But it also showed his courage. He trained in both Na'vi and human combat skills. In the High Ground comics, we see him practicing archery, fishing, and knife techniques like other Na'vi, while also being taught marksmanship with guns by Jake, breaking sacred Na'vi rules. One of Loak's first major challenges came with the traditional Na'vi rite of passage, Iknamaya, which is the bonding of a Na'vi with a Banshee. Unlike his brother Neteyam, who succeeded immediately, Loak initially failed spectacularly, suffering a rough fall. Nevertheless, he persisted and eventually tamed his Ikron. This achievement became a defining moment in his early life, shown by the necklace holding a mountain banshee claw and an armband adorned with a feather matching his banshee's color. Moments like the chaotic evacuation to High Camp in Avatar the High Ground underline a pattern. Under pressure, Loak often struggles with practical responsibilities, reinforcing Jake's sense that he isn't ready for more. His potential was clear, but his execution fell short. Adding to Loak's frustration, Neteyam tended to handle such responsibilities flawlessly. Are you enjoying this breakdown? Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more Avatar character deep dives. The Way of Water. Loak's recklessness is evident early in Way of Water. During the RDA train raid, he rushes in to assist, abandoning his post as an aerial spotter. As Neteyam follows, both fail to spot an approaching RDA gunship. His eagerness to prove himself leads to Na'vi casualties and nearly gets big brother Neteyam killed. This early mistake shows an impulsive nature, but also a desire to step beyond his perceived limitations and assert himself as a warrior. Further proof of Loak's impulsive nature, not that we really need it, comes shortly after, as he leads an expedition to the old battlefields of the 2154 war with Kiri, Tuk, and Spider. They come across Quaritch and his recon squad. Spider is captured during this encounter. The incident forces Jake to move the family to the Metkayina village of Awa'atlu, starting the ocean arc of the epic story. Social exclusion weighs heavily on Loak in Way of Water. He experienced judgment and derision from the Metkayina due to his human features and independent nature. Being called names like half-breed intensified his outsider status. This sense of isolation, however, also fosters empathy and loyalty toward other marginalized figures, including Kiri, Spider, and also Payakan, who we'll come back to shortly. A significant turning point in Loak's story comes when he meets Tsireya of the Metkayina Reef clan. She not only catches all of his attention from first sight, but she then guides him with patience and care, teaching him the way of water, how to ride the ilu, to hold his breath underwater, to fish in the oceans, and to respect the environment. Most importantly, there may also be some romance brewing there. What do you think? Will we see Loak and Tsireya continue to get closer in Avatar 3? Loak's relationships with his family further illuminate his character. With Jake, his rebellious streak creates tension, compounded by constant comparisons to Neteyam. With Neytiri, Loak shares a deep, affectionate bond. Her protectiveness occasionally clashes with his daring nature, but her unwavering love is a stabilizing influence. Loak looks out for his mother, something we see very clearly in a deleted scene where he returns her bow to her. At Awa'atlu, Loak gradually proves himself. He fights Alanung after the boy mocks Kiri, but later apologizes on Jake's advice. Then, he goes hunting with Aonung and his friends to gain favor, but is tricked and stranded in dangerous waters. A large marine predator called the Akula attacks him, and this is where we meet Payakan, the outcast Tulkun who saves his life. Loak bonds with Payakan, removes a harpoon from his fin, and learns to communicate with him. Could Loak and Payakan's bond become the strongest human-animal alliance on Pandora? Loak's bravery continues throughout the story. He witnesses Kiri nearly drowning at the spirit tree and helps her. Another example, when he learns of the Tulkun hunt, Loak sneaks out to find Payakan, determined to help him, even though it means sailing straight toward the RDA and the hunting vessel. This sets the stage for the final battle. During the battle, Loak is decisive and courageous. After being freed by Neteyam, he fights on the Seadragon, rescuing Spider, killing a human, and then escaping under cover fire from his big brother. Then the moment comes that will change his life forever. While he, Neteyam, and Spider are fleeing captivity on the Seadragon, Neteyam is shot. Loak helps Neteyam to the shore, where he's powerless to save his brother. He has no time to grieve because the battle against Quaritch is not yet over, but the tragic loss is destined to haunt him. It was Loak that convinced his brother to rescue Spider, and their returning to do so ultimately caused Neteyam's death. A theme to keep an eye on in Fire and Ash for sure. Back to the battle aboard the Seadragon. Later, when Jake is trapped in a sinking ship, Loak refuses to leave him. With Payakan's help, he and his father escape the wreckage together. This moment once again proves Loak's courage, but also a newfound poise under pressure. If you enjoy Loak's story, remember to hit the like button. By the end of the movie, Loak has transformed. He mourns his brother's loss with the rest of the family, returning Neteyam to Eywa. Will Loak fully embrace his role as a leader among the Metkayina in the upcoming sequels? Let's get into that now. Fire and Ash and Beyond. In Avatar 3, the story will be narrated by Loak, who is now the oldest biological Sully child. He will have to step up and take more responsibility for his siblings, especially Took. We've seen evidence of this in early clips already. In the trailers, we see Loak scouring the wreckage of the Seadragon for Neytiri's bow. We see Loak on top of an elu, riding through stormy seas. We see him wielding a machine gun, and we see him protecting his siblings as they escape Varang's people in the Pandoran jungles. We will no doubt get more of Loak with the Metkayina, keeping his bond with Payakan strong, and getting closer to Siraya too. Expect to see him to step out of his father's shadow, but don't expect it to be a painless process. There's definite tension between them in the trailer, and no doubt we will see so much more that we can't even imagine yet. So, will Loak become the hero his family and the Metkayina need? Can his bond with Payakan help him face the Ash people and protect Pandora? Will he and Siraya become Pandora's next great couple? These questions will shape the course of Avatar 3 and beyond. If you enjoyed exploring Loak's character in depth, please don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into your favorite characters and their stories. Now to the youngest Sully Took. Origins, born in peace, 2163. Tuktire te Sully Neytiri Ite was born around the year 2163 in the Omatikaya village, the forest home the clan built after the fall of Home Tree. This was roughly 9 years after Jake Sully permanently transferred his consciousness into his avatar body, 9 years after the Battle of the Hallelujah Mountains, 9 years into a fragile peace between the Na'vi and the RDA. Her parents had already endured war. Jake had led the Na'vi to victory. Neytiri had killed Colonel Quaritch with 2 arrows through the chest. They had seen death. They had caused death, and they wanted something different for their children. She is Jake and Neytiri's only biological daughter and the youngest child, the baby. Like her siblings, Took is technically a Na'vi avatar hybrid. She grew up roaming through the bioluminescent forests of Pandora, learning the ways of the Omatikaya, like how to run and bond with the creatures of the rainforest. By the time of the high ground, this little girl already stands about 5 feet 7 inches, 170 centimeters. Her family was everything to her. Her oldest brother Neteyam, the golden child, always watching over her. Loak, the middle child, always getting into trouble. Kiri, her mysterious older sister, always teaching her something new. Even Spider, the human boy who ran with them. Took was the heart of the Sully family, the one they all protected, the one who reminded them what they were fighting for. Trinity Jolie Bliss, the actress who voices Took, described her character as small but mighty. The High Ground, First Contact with Danger, 2168. Took's story begins in the comic books. Between the first Avatar film and the sequel, Dark Horse Comics released a trilogy of canonical graphic novels called Avatar: The High Ground. These fill in the years between the films. and Took appears in them as a child around 6 years old. In the high ground, set around the year 2168, we see Took as a curious and adventurous little girl, already getting into trouble and following her older siblings into places she should not go. There is a scene in the comics where Took sneaks out with Kiri, and Spider to explore an ancient battlefield. This is not some innocent field trip, but a graveyard of war. The wreckage of a SA-2 Samson gunship lies half buried in the vegetation. Scorch marks stain the earth. Shattered metal rusts in the humid air. A haunting reminder of the violence that shaped Pandora before Took was born. But the comics do not stop there. In one of the most intense moments of the High Ground storyline, Took and the rest of the kids are held hostage in the biolab at Hell's Gate after being tricked by Nash McCosker, an RDA-aligned human. This is the same facility that served as the human base in the first film, and where Dr. Grace Augustine conducted her research. This establishes a pattern that will be repeated at least twice in Way of Water. Took is a target because her enemies know that the best way to hurt Jake is through his children, and Took is the youngest and most vulnerable, a hostage before she was old enough to understand why. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the Avatar timeline and the comics, make sure to subscribe. We are tracking every clue James Cameron drops about the future of Pandora. The Way of Water, 2170. By the year 2170, Took is around 7 or 8 years old, when the RDA returns to Pandora with a new invasion force, led by the recombinant clone of Colonel Quaritch. The children are held hostage in the forest by Quaritch's men. All the kids except Spider escape, but it's far too close for comfort and shows the threat is very real. Jake makes a decision to take his family and flee. They leave the forests of the Omatikaya and travel to the eastern seaboard. There they seek refuge with the Metkayina clan, and Took adapts. While her brothers struggle with their pride and their differences from the Metkayina children, while Kiri searches for answers about her connection to Eywa, Took just seems to blend in. She learns to swim. She bonds with an elu, the sleek aquatic creatures the reef clans ride through the waves. Took also forms a close bond with Sireya, the daughter of the Metkayina chief, watching and learning from her. She may be small, but she is strong and resourceful. The second RDA battle. Then comes the worst day of her young life. During the climactic battle aboard the RDA Seadragon whaling vessel, Quaritch's recombinant squad captures Loak, Sireya, and Took. Again, just like in the comics. The same pattern. The Sully kids used as bait. Quaritch's recom squad ties Loak, Sireya, and Took to the railings as hostages. Later, he presses a knife to Kiri's throat while Took stands nearby, using Jake's children as leverage. She watches her family fight for their lives as the massive ship floods with water. She watches chaos and violence and death swirl around her in the darkness. She is trapped in the belly of a sinking vessel, gasping for air. Her parents and brothers risk their lives again and again in the flooding corridors of the Seadragon to pull her out alive. Jake nearly drowns trying to save her. Neytiri fights with a ferocity we've never seen before. Her brothers risk everything to get her out, and it costs her oldest brother everything. Neteyam, her protector, the one who always looked out for her and the golden child of the Sully family. He takes a bullet during the escape from the ship and dies in his parents' arms. The light fades from his eyes, with Took still stranded, helpless on the sinking ship. The death of Neteyam will impact the entire Sully family, but for Took, the transformation could well be the most severe. She is the youngest. She understood the least about the danger they faced, but now she understands everything. In interviews, James Cameron has made it clear, Took will never be the same, and what she went through will shape who she becomes. The innocent little girl from the forests of Pandora? She's gone. What remains is something harder. Before we look at how grief transforms her in the next movie, hit that like button if you think Took deserves a break and let me know in the comments. Do you think she blames herself for Neteyam's death? Fire and ash. The weight of grief. This brings us to Avatar: Fire and Ash. We have seen glimpses of the third film in trailers and clips, but our knowledge of it is still limited. But one thing is for certain, the Sully family is broken. Jake carries the guilt of a father who could not protect his son, while Neytiri burns with a rage that threatens to consume her. Loak struggles with survivor's guilt, and Kiri searches for meaning in her connection to Eywa, and Took is carrying a weight no child should have to bear. In The Way of Water, she was the comic relief with cute moments and the I will tell mom energy. She was the little girl hiding behind her siblings, and now around a year later in universe, she will again be in danger. As seen from this early clip where the children are on the run from Varang and the Manquan clan. Will this film give us a version of Took who is a little less helpless and who may even have some fight in her? We will find out soon. The future, Teenage Took. James Cameron has confirmed that there will be a significant time jump between Avatar 3 and Avatar 4, assuming Avatar 4 happens, that is. This jump could be as much as 6 or 7 years. This means that by Avatar 4, Took would be a teenager. Some fans have already begun speculating, what if teenage Took becomes like her mother? What if she takes up the bow with the same deadly precision? Took, standing tall, eyes burning with the same fire we see in Neytiri, ready to make her enemies pay for everything they took from her family. Neytiri has lost her father and eldest son to human violence, and it transformed her into a warrior without mercy. Took lost her brother, and the same fire might now be forming inside her. Now to the adopted son, Spider, the son of the franchise's greatest villain, and yet he fights alongside our heroes. Miles Spider Socorro is the boy torn between two worlds who may be the secret to humanity's survival. Before Fire and Ash, here's everything you need to know about the franchise's most complicated character. Origins: born in War, 2154. Miles Socorro was born in 2154 at Hell's Gate, the human colony on Pandora. His parents were Colonel Miles Quaritch, the brutal SecOps commander, and Paz Socorro, an RDA Scorpion gunship pilot. Spider never met either of them. Both died in the Battle of the Hallelujah Mountains on August 23, 2154, the same battle that ended the first RDA Na'vi War. Paz Socorro was killed during the RDA's last stand, while Quaritch died with 2 of Neytiri's arrows lodged in his chest. Their infant son was orphaned. When the RDA was expelled from Pandora, most humans were forced to return to Earth, but infants cannot be placed in cryostasis for the 6-year interstellar journey, so baby Miles stayed behind, under the care of the handful of human scientists who were allowed to remain. Childhood: the stray cat. A couple named Nash and Mary McCosker fostered him, but Spider was drawn to the Omatikaya clan's way of life from an early age. He felt more Na'vi at heart, despite his human body. His extraordinary climbing ability as a young child earned him the nickname Spider, which he preferred to his father's name. By the late 2160s, teenage Spider was effectively living among the Omatikaya, accompanying the Sully children, Neteyam, Loak, Kiri, and Tuktire on their adventures. He was closest to Kiri, the mysterious daughter of Grace's avatar. The two shared a special understanding as outsiders. She calls him Monkey Boy, since he's swinging from trees so much. He spoke the Na'vi language fluently and navigated Pandora's terrain with ease, all while wearing an exopack and a respirator mask to survive Pandora's toxic atmosphere. Remember that humans die within 4 minutes if they don't have their own air supply. He learned Na'vi customs, even adopting Na'vi-style dreadlocks and painting blue stripes on his skin using Pandoran dyes to fit in. How far would you go to fit in with the Na'vi? Let us know in the comments. Despite all this, Spider's place within the tribe was shaky. Neytiri, who had been scarred by the humans' violence, always kept him at an emotional distance. She saw him as one of the sky people who brought destruction to her world. Jake is also a little conflicted about Spider. In his opening narration, he says that Spider wasn't part of our family. He was like a stray cat, just always around. The High Ground: Rebellion and Loyalty, 2168. Spider's early adolescence is depicted in Avatar: The High Ground, the graphic novel series set around 2168, over a decade after the original film. In this story, Spider participates in Na'vi rites and youthful escapades, even joining Loak during his Iknamaya, the banshee-taming rite of passage in the floating Hallelujah Mountains. Though a human cannot form the neural bond with a mountain banshee, Spider made the full climb anyway, hanging on by his fingers while the others move with Na'vi agility. The High Ground also shows the Sully children sneaking off with Spider to explore an old battlefield. They find themselves in danger, forcing the parents to rescue them. Neytiri scolds Spider harshly and forbids him from being around her daughter Kiri, declaring that Spider belongs with his own kind. Though accepted by the Sully children, he is not fully accepted by their mother. Spider confides to Kiri that he believes Neytiri would hate him if she knew who his father was. In 2169, the RDA returns to Pandora. In comics, the approach of a second conflict forces Jake's family to seek refuge. Dr. Max Patel tells Spider to stay in Hell's Gate with his human foster parents for his own safety. But when his foster father McCosker attempts to lock him away, Spider uses a fire extinguisher to break out, before helping free Jake's children as well, who had snuck back to rescue him. The children all flee into the rainforest as RDA troops pursue them. Even though Spider struggles to keep up with his long-limbed Na'vi companions, his determination is unwavering. These events reinforce that Spider, though human by birth, had firmly aligned himself with the Na'vi side. And if you've firmly aligned yourself with our channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. The Way of Water: Capture and Torture, 2170. In Avatar: The Way of Water, Spider's story takes center stage. By 2170, Spider is about 16 years old. Colonel Quaritch, Spider's deceased father, has been reborn as a recombinant avatar, a Na'vi body implanted with Quaritch's memories. This Quaritch leads a commando unit in search of Jake Sully. Deep into the Pandoran jungle, they stumble upon Jake's children and Spider. During this confrontation, Quaritch discovers Spider's identity, with a scan of the boy's DNA later confirming him as the son of the late Colonel. Spider is taken as a hostage back at Bridgehead City, where he endures a harrowing interrogation at the hands of General Ardmore. The RDA straps Spider to a neurosect mind-reading device in an attempt to extract Jake's location from his memories. Despite intense pain, Spider resists giving up any useful information, staying loyal. Quaritch then shows an unexpected protectiveness toward his son, asking Ardmore to stop the torture. He wants custody of Spider, arguing that he might succeed where brute force methods fail. Quaritch, the twisted bond. And so begins an uneasy father-son relationship. Quaritch's recombinant decides to keep Spider by his side, partly as a guide to Pandora, partly out of a fatherly instinct. Quaritch even returns Spider's personal belongings, such as the late human Quaritch's dog tag, in a clumsy attempt to establish a bond. Spider responds by flinging the dog tag away. "I'm not that man," the recombinant insists, trying to distance himself from his ruthless dad. Over the following weeks, Spider traverses Pandora with Quaritch's squad, acting as their reluctant guide, interpreter, and tutor. In one memorable sequence, Spider watches Quaritch attempt to tame a wild Ikron. Spider mocks Quaritch's plan to tranquilize the flying creature from afar, claiming that Na'vi kids younger than me do this with their bare hands. Quaritch then leaps onto the Banshee and wrestles it into submission. Spider is reluctantly impressed by his dad. A complicated bond is forming, but Spider's moral dilemma becomes worse as Quaritch uses increasingly brutal tactics to smoke out Jake. For example, Quaritch rounds up villagers of the reef-dwelling Taonui clan. When the villagers deny any knowledge of Jake, Quaritch orders one of his men to shoot an elu in front of the crowd as a warning. Spider is shocked and pleads with Quaritch to stop. Quaritch then threatens to execute the clan's Tsahik and orders Spider to translate this threat, forcing the boy to participate in the terror. Spider begs Quaritch to spare the woman's life and is nearly in tears as he apologizes to the villagers for what's happening. Next, Spider witnesses the slaughter of Pandora's majestic Tulkun. Brought aboard the RDA's S-76 Seadragon whaling vessel, Spider looks on in anguish as the crew hunts and kills a Tulkun mother named Roa. While the adults cheer the successful kill and their acquisition of the valuable Amrita, Spider is repulsed by the brutality. Spider's choice. In the climactic battle at the Three Brothers, Quaritch captures Loak, Tuk, and the Metkayina chief's daughter, Tsareya, as hostages. For Spider, this is the final straw. He grabs a fire extinguisher and bludgeons the Seadragon pilot unconscious. He then sets the ship to full throttle before sabotaging the controls. In the chaos, Spider manages to reunite with Loak and Neteyam, helping them escape. Tragically, Neteyam is hit by enemy gunfire during the escape and dies shortly after reaching the rocky shore. Spider's eyes fill with tears as he realizes his friend has died. He helps carry Neteyam's body out and mourns with the Sullys. Meanwhile, Jake and Neytiri return to the sinking ship to engage Quaritch in a final, deadly confrontation. During this standoff, Quaritch holds Kiri at knife point to force Jake's surrender, but Neytiri turns the tables, grabbing Spider. She even draws blood from Spider's chest to show she's serious. Despite claiming that Spider means nothing to him, Quaritch cannot bear to see his son harmed. He relents and releases Kiri, rather than risk Spider's life. Spider is left shaken. Witnessing Neytiri's uncontrolled rage, he realizes that in that moment, she was capable of killing him. Have you seen the deleted scene from Way of Water? If you haven't, make sure to subscribe to the channel where you can see how bad things nearly got for Neytiri and Spider. In the aftermath, Jake strangles Quaritch, leaving the Colonel for dead. But Spider stumbles upon Quaritch's unconscious body while searching for survivors. Despite having many logical reasons to let Quaritch die, his conscience cannot allow it. He makes a fateful decision. He drags his unconscious recombinant dad to the surface and saves him from drowning. When Quaritch comes to, he is weak, defeated, and shocked by his son's decision. He tenderly calls Spider son and tells him, "Come with me." In that moment, Spider definitively chooses his allegiance. He snaps no, even hissing in the Na'vi fashion. He ends up turning his back on Quaritch. But can Spider truly break the father-son bond? Let us know what you think in the comments. A son for a son. Spider's return to the Sully family at battle's end is bittersweet. He arrives on the rocky shore where the family grieves Neteyam, unsure if he is welcome or not. Jake immediately acknowledges Spider's presence, pulls him into an embrace as well. Jake says, "A son for a son," implying that in losing Neteyam he has gained Spider as a son in turn. This poignant line suggests Jake is adopting Spider into the family, giving the boy the acceptance he long craved. Kiri is overjoyed that Spider is back safe. She affectionately calls him Monkey Boy, and even holds his hand during Neteyam's funeral. Neytiri, however, pointedly avoids interacting with Spider. She focuses on her slain son and offers no acknowledgement of Spider, reflecting the divide between them. By the end of Way of Water, Spider has firmly chosen the Na'vi over his father, but the consequences of his actions, especially saving Quaritch, leave open questions about trust and loyalty. The future, breathing Pandora's heir. One of the most exciting developments teased in the Fire and Ash trailer is that Spider will undergo a miraculous change. We see Spider moving around on Pandora without a mask. The new villain Varang asks him as a result, "How do you still live?" Then in the trailer, Jake's voice ominously asks, "What if every human being on Earth could live here without a mask? Then the Na'vi people will be gone." This implies that Spider's newfound ability, breathing Pandora's air freely, is a huge plot point for the films to come. The trailer also shows Spider bonding with an Elu via a neural cue, just as a Na'vi would. In other words, Spider appears to achieve what he always dreamed of, the capacity to function as a Na'vi. Is it possible that Kiri, with Awa's guidance, helps Spider undergo some form of Pandoran anointment? If Spider can plug into Awa's network, perhaps via some unique neural prosthetic or a communion ritual at the spirit tree, it might alter his physiology enough to metabolize Pandora's atmosphere. For Spider on a personal level, this essentially erases the barrier that kept him separate from the Na'vi. He would become a human-Na'vi hybrid in capability. What the Avatar program tried to achieve through technology, Spider might achieve through a biological and spiritual path. But Jake's line about humans living without masks implies that Spider's newfound ability might not remain unique to him. It could be replicated, posing an enormous threat if more humans gain that power. It could be the key to humans colonizing Pandora permanently. Whatever happens, we can see that Spider will be front and center in the new film. He will be torn again between his two dads. He can be seen shouting, "Do not test me," presumably at Quaritch. We also see him on the run through the jungle and in the sky caravan with the Tlalim clan, where he fires an arrow at one of Varang's Manquan clan. He also seems to be hostage of the Manquan at one stage. Spider's transformation could save humanity and doom the Na'vi. His loyalties will be tested, his secret will be hunted, and the boy who was always an outsider might become the key to everything. Subscribe now so you're ready when Fire and Ash arrives. The battle for Pandora's future is about to begin.